Love them or hate them, jade, dwarf jade, African jade, whatever you want to call these different varieties of succulent, they can make great bonsai. And to prove it, I'm going to take you back 12 months and show you just the sort of growth and just the sort of progression you can get towards a fantastically stunning indoor bonsai design. Because right now, it is actually only 1 degree. These have been inside for over a month now. But this little forest scene with a beautiful Dawn Isaac ceramic has cost me nothing. Just a little bit of time. But this isn't the only fantastic result I've had with my jade. So come along and I'll show you a few others, because I have had some pretty startling results and I've got a few secrets on my growing tips. Hi, it's Xavier and welcome to my bonsai retreat. And guess what? It's the 15th of January. Out there it's -5 degrees. In here it's 21 degrees. But you know what I thought I'd do? Is give you an update on the jades or the Portula Afras or whatever. I never know which sort they are. The last time you saw these was, I think, early December. Oh, let's have a closer look at this jade. As I say, it was bought way back in 2016, something like that. What have we got in here? Let's see what will fit in the pot, to be honest. And this was the one, probably one of the earliest jade videos I did. It had another big trunk that went up the middle, took it off. It's growing slowly, and I think I've got to watch it. I've got a funny feeling the soil isn't quite what I should have done. I'm probably going to have to put this into a nice deep pot and just let it go and re-strengthen. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'll cut this back. Well, as you can see, I decided it needed to go into that pot now, and I think that's going to be something I really need to impress upon people. If you're going to try and go smaller pots and try and get it bonsai looking, then sometimes you need to think and ask, is the actual plant or tree ready to go into something so shallow, especially after all the work I did on it. And if you can't remember, if you go back to this video here, basically for the year that it's been sitting there, it stood still. Let's see how that gets on, and in fact we are going to see how that got on and whether that made a difference, because as I say, right now it's February the 15th, and what I'd really imagine is if I count to 3, you may well be scooted on to the future. 3, 2, 1. So here we are now, probably 4 or 5 months later, and I put some wire on it, and I do have to keep an eye out because the wire is just starting to bite in. But we've definitely got quite a bit of growth there, and I reckon it's looking a lot happier. Measurement wise, best get a tape measure I suppose, is currently 40 centimeters high. We won't worry about these branches, but what I'm interested in is see how much taller that gets by the end of the year. And all I'm going to do is just keep feeding it and keeping it in the sunlight. We'll have a look at that wire in another couple of weeks, I think. But I also did a second one. Let's have a look at that, shall we? Okay, well this is the second one. Yep, I know. I hear you yawning from here. Oh, what's so exciting about that, Zav? I hear you say.
I've lost any reason to live.
Well, nothing really, except, cutting from one of my earlier jades or Portula Claras. Don't know which one. But again, wired a little bit of shape into it, and I'm going to continue to let this grow. That's the point, and this was all in response to a question I had from someone last year saying, how can I make my small jade into a big jade? And I said, easy, put it in a bigger pot and feed it heavily. So there you go, there it is, and again, I'll continue to leave it in the sun, and we'll see how it is in a few months' time. Should we get the tape measure of truth out? I don't know where the main core on this, it's sitting at 25 centimeters. So I'll make a note of those in my bonsai database, which I think everyone should have. And if you want to know what that is, then have a look in the description, because it is a fantastic little app, so long you've got Microsoft Access, probably 2016 onwards. Well, who'd have believed it? We're now the 3rd of September. I think it's pretty plain to see there has been a lot of growth, and that's the aim. So what am I going to do? Well, first of all, let's see exactly what sort of growth we have had. I mean, this needs to push out, but it's what, about 31 The highest one takes up to about 31 centimetres. Do I need to do anything with it? Well, I've got wire here. It's not gripping in there. Looking under here, hasn't yet appeared to bite in. Definitely need to put some more fertiliser in there because I noticed the fertiliser has been used up. I could be very tempted to remove one particular branch, and I think it's really clear which one it is. It's going to be this one, because unless I was intending to change the line and run this one up this way, this is actually taking energy away from this upper growth. So, and the same could be said for this lower one here. So I am actually going to make just that one decision there. Remove that. Or do I remove that one, or do I remove this one under here? There's actually one under here I definitely don't need. Do I really expect to have that if I'm developing this? And the answer's got to be no. It's not giving me anything, so let's get rid of it. So that's okay, we'll leave that. We've got this growing off, we've got this going up as the main. It does raise the issue about what we do with this thing here. Okay, I've just managed to get a little bit more upward growth on that. The trouble I'm going to have is if this continues to grow up this way, it doesn't really suit it. So what I want is, at the moment, if I look just there, I've got a nice upward one. Again, what I'm doing here is, it's like here, 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 from the same point, and although I do still want to be getting upward growth, I don't want to create obvious issues like this, you know, the old handlebar, that sort of thing. Can't see what I did when I did that, can you? I did this.
He needs help.
But this one we need to remove. Probably I'm going to take that off from there. Oh, just getting a touch of rain, typical. You have to pour the washing in. I want this to grow up and thicken it, but I'm not sure unless I was to use that as a main branch. For now, let's remove it and see what growth we get. It'd be nice if we've got something growing from the back there coming outwards. Probably want to remove, oh, I don't know which one I want to remove. You know what? Probably that one. Really, we need something coming from here. Main aim, I want to increase the thickness, which means I'd imagine by the time I bring this inside, I am going to have to start watching out for wire. So I do not want the wire to mark this very impressionable jade. Just going to have a look at the other one before the heavens open up totally. Now this one, we've most certainly seen some additional growth. When I look at the length there above the wire, from the base to the top is now 47 centimetres. So I've definitely seen a lot of growth there, and that is going to convert to girth lower down. Got lots of strong branches, and again, you just have to go back to the beginning of this to see it was in quite a poor state not that many years ago. So what do? Same thing. Remove stuff that is clearly never going to be part of the design. Upward stuff there. Little bits in here. Here. This is going to stay as the main line, which means I probably need to get rid of that one. Just need to shorten this one down. And again, even if I remove this at a later stage, this branch can be acting as the perfect sacrifice and continuing to thicken up the trunk. Do I really need this one? If I keep this one, it's opposite, so I'd say no. This is too long, I know. And then we're just going to continue to grow up. Anything that's growing up there. In fact, we've actually got this one here. That could be the future. So, that's it for September. I'd imagine the next time you're going to see these is when they're probably going to their dormant phase. Well, shiver me timbers, literally, it is 1 degree right now. There's frost right across my workbench. Right now, I think we're the 29th of November. It's my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Kay. And look at it. I think we've had a massive amount of growth on this. And remember, it was a pretty ill-looking specimen at the beginning of the year. Well, here you go. Nice deep soil. It's been fed regularly. It's got to enjoy sunlight. And you can see that because of these lovely, big, nice, fleshy lobes. Now granted, I've got one or two around here that have got some discoloration. Don't worry, that normally is a reflection of too much water or not enough water. Big rule, let your jades dry out.
It's completely dried out.
Once they're dried out, check the soil with your fingers, then water. But generally most problems with jade will relate to not enough sun, or indeed not enough or too much water. So, what are we going to do here? Well, this is straightforward. I have one plan in mind, and if you've been following me, you know what the plan is here. Restore health. Well, I think we can do a big tick. This is pretty healthy. Next thing, I want to form a proper structure. I want to get some good primary structure. Now, jades are healthiest when they have multiple branches, multiple trunks, and when you see them in the wild, you'll see that they are a multi-trunk. This is where I did the big cut here, and look at the growth that has come from there. I've got a nice little branch here which is giving me much more balanced look to the entire tree. Incredible when you look back and think what it looked like. And so there you go, that's the first big proof for you. You can cut these back hard, and so long they're healthy, you feed them. In the space of just 6 months, I've established what I would like to think is a tree. We're just into winter now. This is going to enjoy a nice warm spot right on the on a window ledge, and it's going to get as much sun as it can. If possible, I might even get a grow lamp on it. Where we've got new leaves coming up, leaves, lobes, we're going to rub those off. There's my line, main trunk, secondary branch, splitting off to 1, 2, a little bit lower, this one. But I am going to remove just a few inner lobes. So I can open this out. Where I've got some obvious crossing, I might remove those, but I want these to continue to grow higher. So really all I'm doing is creating space and light within the design. Could I, if I was now looking to get maximize ramification, could I now cut these right back down here, or here, or here, like I did in a previous video? Yeah, of course I could. And that would create 2 pairs of lobes coming out at the next site down. If you look at this, we've got lines. To know how it's going to spawn, if I cut there, 2 lobes will come out from the next junction of lines down. So just look for your lines, cut above it, and that's where you'll get your next growth from. I've pretty well cut what I want to go off. You can see now, you can see into it, get good airflow. And as I say, when you bring stuff indoors, one of the biggest issues you can have is because of the lack of light, the lack of wind and good ventilation, you can cause problems on the inner aspect. I'll say again, yes, every part of me is screaming out, cut these right back, cut these right down, but I don't want it. I want this to get a lot bigger. I know that in another 6 months I can cut these all the way back to here. If I'm patient, I can do something about the size. I can rapidly bring on the girth of these and make those branches bigger and more impressive. And I want this to be a bigger bonsai. To do that, I have to let it grow. So that's what I'm going to do. What I have done though is where I've had situations like here, there was another branch coming up here. I actually want to create pads going out that way. So I don't want growth going in places I'm never going to use it. It's a waste of resources. But everywhere that I've cut, every point where I've removed one of these big nodes here, is potentially going to be a site for 2 new miniature buds coming out. So the leaf removal not only opens it out, it also means I can potentially start growing branches and create greater ramification a little higher up the tree. Do I want growth coming out here? No, I want the growth going upwards. I might just take tops off these, tops off those. Now let that go up. This great big tall one here, again, I want the side branch coming out this way. Do I really want this competing going upwards? No, not really. So I will remove that. This side branch, am I going to want this to grow out higher like that? Probably not. What I'm hoping for is where I've cut lobes off in here, I'm going to get side branches coming through. I'll tell you the aim. What will happen is I'm going to let this continue to grow up and thicken, but what will eventually happen here is I will probably next year cut this right back to somewhere here. that's all I'm going to do with that. Hey, I love it. And do you know what's fun about it? All you need is a pair of scissors, and they don't need to be bonsai scissors. Just remember one thing. The sap from those things can be a little bit damaging to your tools, so whether it be scissors or whatever, make sure you clean them down, potentially use some rubbing alcohol or something, just so they don't gum up, because that jade juice can be pretty gummy. And really, this is what I would do to all my jades, just as I'm about to bring them inside. And that's what I recommend you do too. And if you've ever worried about white spots on your leaves, it's nothing to worry about. Normally, if you get your finger, you can rub it off. It all relates to the hard water that you're using. So if you just use deionized water or rainwater, then potentially you'll eradicate that. But it's not harmful. It's just the plant is getting rid of, through the roots, all that calcium. So you just rub it off. And the other thing you might often see, which again is nothing to worry about, is around the edges of your leaves, you'll see this redness. And certainly with my jades earlier in the year, that redness was right across the leaves when there was a lot of sun, and that's just a defense mechanism to stop the lobe getting burnt out. It's actually a protective color which protects against sun. And actually, let's remind ourselves of the process. You've just seen me doing cuttings off that main one there. Well, earlier in the year I did cuttings, and I just put them into a little container, and these are them. So these are 0 to 1. The advice I'd give with a cutting is once you've taken your cutting, put it in a container, and normally I leave it for 2 or 3 days, let it dry out completely. Once it's dried out, you put the whole bunch of them together, straight into some, I use a standard soil mix for my bonsai. I'll give it a good watering once, and then I'll leave it until it's completely dried out, and then I will water as necessary. And then each year, depending on how big I want it to be, I'll do some pruning on it. Whack this in a pot. This is 3 to 4 years. And if you want to keep them small, keep pruning them. If you want them to get a bit bigger, well, actually, that brings us nicely round to updates that we want to do on those other two. Should we go back and see how they've grown? So here we go, and hasn't that shoved on some height? And I think with a little bit of tape measure magic, with the tape measure of truth, we might find out just what sort of growth we've got from this. Certainly it's stretching up to a good 50 centimeters, and above the wire line we've had 20 centimeters. So what's the next step? Bear in mind, I know this is the front. I'm going to remove anything that is getting in the way, anything that I know I'm not going to want. We're looking here, we've got 3 branches. I know that I'm going to remove one of those 3 depending on the front. The front is somewhere around here. We've got some lovely back branches coming this way. We've got lots of growth up here. I think I mentioned in an earlier update that I was potentially going to be cutting here, which of course makes that an ideal cutting for next year. All that height, absolutely brilliant. Or I could go lower, and the reason why we're talking about that is because with this wiring bend I induced, probably not the best, we've created quite a sharp angle, and I really need to bring that back as quick as I can, because this is just wrong. So I'm going to make that decision straight away. We're going to cut the wire off, and as I say, this wire's been on for 10 months, something like that, 10-11 months, and it's just a little bit of scarring, and there it is. And as I said, all I need to do with that, I could cut it into 2 or 3 pieces, or indeed I could just leave it like this, let it dry out for a bit, and then plant it straight into some soil. I get a brilliant little tree from that. As I say, I see the front somewhere here. I'm not sure I like this branch. This could still potentially be just a sacrifice to help thicken the trunk, as could this one here. Although I actually quite like, almost in a sort of twin trunk style, I like the shallow angle of that with this. But I don't need to make that decision now. What I do need to decide is, let's remove those loads underneath, which of these 3, one of them needs to be removed. And I think it's going to be the one at the back. Really, the main decision I have to make here is how much further back do I cut here? And there's part of me that's going potentially there. I just think the way that's bent under, I just think that's the answer. I can see myself removing that. I'd imagine when we revisit this in the probably summertime next year, we're going to see a lot more growth all around this. And I'm going to follow the same procedure with it. I'm actually going to let it go now for another 11 months and let it put on loads and loads of vigour, loads of extra branching. What do I need to do? I got a good tip from a very experienced bonsai chap up in Scotland called Derek, using Super Thrive, the original vitamin solution, and it includes kelp. So I'm going to be trying this out on a lot of my trees, but especially all my indoor, my tiger bark ficus, and indeed my jade. So I'll be very interested to see how this Super Thrive works out. So there you go. I've basically taken it back to where it was probably 11 months ago, although that is a lot thicker and a lot healthier. And again, this one's had a good set of growth as well. Get the measuring tape of truth, and I think we're up around about 35 centimeters to the top of this. Now there's an interesting decision we've got to make about this because of the actual way this has grown, and we've got this quite almost circular rounding sort of thing there. I'm inclined that we either need to cut it back all the way to here, where we've got this junction here, or indeed we bring it even further back to here. A little bit of movement here. I don't want that, I know I don't. So I am going to make a big decision. I could cut there, put these in the cutting tray. Potentially, again, I'm going to apologise. My stool is going, I need to replace my stool. I will do that before the new season starts. I could hold that. If we look at it there, it's not as bad. Potentially, we could have something growing up that way. Or I could just bite the bullet and cut it right back here. I mean, giving it a spin, I'm actually inclined to leave it, this part here, and not go all the way back yet. That's something I can do. Let me know what you think. I'm not too worried about all this stuff here, I'll just let that grow on. But there is quite an interesting line there, depending how they grow out. So I've been really happy with the results I've got over the 11 months. Glad I got it into more soil, glad I've been feeding it up, and glad I left it alone, to be honest, because now I can see some more future. If I wanted these to get as thick as the one that we saw earlier, simple. Don't prune it, just let it go. Keep feeding it heavily. That's my advice there. Can you use wire? You've seen it, I've used wire. It's been perfectly fine. So use wire, just monitor it. In terms of temperatures, if the temperatures start dropping down to sort of 5 degrees, these things come inside, and they are pretty low maintenance. Just open them up so that we get good ventilation between them. But otherwise, I'm happy as. So, you know what? If you want something to be looking at and enjoying through the winter as well, you can't go very wrong with your succulents, your jades, your portularia.
Just give it up, dude.
Afra. They're brilliant. And if you want to see how these looked before I put them in the pot and why this experiment started, then that's the video you need to be watching next. Happy bonsaiing. God bless. Keep smiling. Cheers.